friends, and welcome to Words, where we talk about the stories that define us and why they work so well. You will have heard that Everything, Everywhere, All at Once took home the most Oscars for 2023. 7 Oscars in total. It's not the most amount of Oscars that have ever been won by a single picture. In the past, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Titanic, Ben-Hur back in the day. So a few others have really kind of swept the board. A lot of those were technical, the below line Oscars. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is significant because it has won the most above the line Oscars, which means the big categories. Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Best Directors, Best Original Screenplay, Best Picture, and then Best Editing. It is quite a landmark win. And also because it wasn't necessarily tipped as the favourite. There was a lot of hype around it, a lot of energy towards the lead up. But there were a number of other films that were in the running, and I've reviewed a few of them. Banshees of Inisherin, The Fabelmans. Elvis had also previously won a bunch of Golden Globes. Tour was also really well reviewed, really highly fated, but Everything Everywhere All at Once really dominated. And it was a moment of kind of surprise, but also not surprise. I think one of the most important things about this is that it was a moment of great joy and great fun. Not necessarily what the Oscars is usually known for. Usually they're known for big, epic, really artsy or really dramatic or really powerful, big pictures. And Everything Everywhere All at Once, right from the outset, was popular. Just a bit cheeky and a bit crazy and a bit, like, what is this film? But everybody just loved it. And it's not necessarily one that would usually win these types of awards. It did, and for good reason. The more I think about it, the more I understand why, and most significantly, what it says about our cultural moment right now. So the two directors had come from directing music films and Knife Man, the one with Paul Dano and Harry Potter. Swiss Army Man. So they directed that. So they're known for like their quirky approach, their visual spectacular kind of effect of music videos. And interestingly, both of these elements play into this movie, but they have not been on the menu for lots of awards in the past. But this was one of the earliest releases last year, and still it maintained the momentum and the appeal enough for the voting to go through. If you're not familiar with the politics of the Oscars, I'll leave that for you to research. But it is quite interesting to find out why these awards are given. Think about that and question that and make sure that there's the appropriate amount of integrity and value and balance. So the fact that this movie won is perhaps a little bit of a nod towards needing to broaden the horizon of the Oscars and the scope of what we appreciate as good art and as good filmmaking, but also a little bit of moving with the times in terms of what are people watching now, what matters now, what is considered meaningful. It is stuff that people can latch onto and hold, and stuff that is different and interesting, and that, I think, is what Everything Everywhere All at Once really captures. It's a lot of vowels. E-E-A-A-O. Eow. No, it's not going to work. So, why does this movie work so well? Let me take you through it. Number one, it is the story. It's such a mundane story from the outset, but told in such a spectacular way. And you might be thinking, well, it's sci-fi, how can it be mundane? The whole premise of this movie, the way it starts, should be boring. The opening scenes are all about this woman trying to do her taxes, trying to make lunch, trying to set up for a good Chinese New Year party to impress her dad. Like, that's pretty much it. So the settings we have, this struggling laundromat and this flat above the laundromat, and there's mess and there's tax papers everywhere, and from the outset, that should be a boring setting, but it's not. The story itself takes us from this very simple, very real, very relatable situation, and then it branches off into something fantastic and spectacular, which, number one, is something that we as an audience love anyway. We want to be taken from where we are and to go somewhere different. We want to go somewhere new. We want to be told that something can transform our lives, and that's exactly what happens for the main character, played by the wonderful Michelle Yeoh. So the story is one of the things that grabs us. It's a simple idea. It should be boring, but it's not. And the second thing about the movie and why it works so well is the visuals. Now, this is why the setting at the start, even though it's kind of boring and mundane, is so captivating because it is filmed with this saturation and high color intensity and everything. The settings are rich, they're full of detail, they're full of interest and layers of meaning and layers of interest and lots of stuff going on, but it's also not too much. That goes for the setting in the apartment, and then also in the laundromat, and then when they go to the IRS office. And I should say another thing about the story is that it all takes place in an IRS office, right? But even visually, the IRS office is interesting. They contrast, the way that the directors have done this is they've contrasted so well the mundanity of what's going on in the office with these characters that populate it. And one of those characters being Deirdre, who is played by Jamie Lee Curtis. But the main visual focus, if you've seen this, of course, is the visual effect. The reason why people are so fascinated by it with this movie is that these guys actually did all the visual effects themselves with a very small technical team, and none of them had had any professional training, YouTube and instructional videos, and had just like run with it. They actually came out with something really incredible. There's a few pool scenes where we're kind of following the character through all these different flashing settings. And it is so well edited and so well cut and visually so well done because there's no monotony in the scenes that we're seeing. It's all fascinating. That is done so cleverly and so well in such a way that is absorbable and simplified for the audience because they have been so precise, so artistic with the way they have done the visual effects. And it's not just those scenes. There's characters that change costume as they're walking down a hallway. There's a spinning black bagel, but they are done flawlessly and seamlessly and in a way that we can grasp. Never once did I ever feel overwhelmed by the visuals, and that's saying something considering how visually active and intense the movie was. The third thing that is really captivating is the way they've used the sci-fi elements so well that it doesn't feel alienating. The sci-fi element that comes into it is this idea of parallel and multiple universes, but the story is not actually about that. The narrative itself takes us through the idea of multiverses, but it does it in a quick way that doesn't feel like a brush off. It doesn't feel like 101 on multiversing, but it's actually really cohesive, really logical, really easy to follow, even though a lot of it takes place through that kind of lens. A lot of narratives about multiple universes are about how they work and why they're different and the kind of quantum theory behind it. Instead of focusing on all that stuff, the movie kind of blends all that stuff into the story, but it's not about the multiverses. It's about the relationship between Evelyn and her daughter Joy. The kind of relationship that they have. And you don't really know this right from the outset because it's also about Evelyn and her relationship with her husband Waymond. It's a very domestic story, but it's taken through this lens of the multiverses. The way they've used sci-fi is not alienating, it's not boring, it's not intense, it's not like this is multiverses, but it's actually part of the journey of this family. And so it's a combination of the sci-fi and the domestic that make this narrative work so well. The fourth thing I want to say is about the performances and about the characters that have been written in. The directors, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, who are known as the Daniels, they've been working together for a while and they wrote the screenplay together as well. They wrote these incredible characters, and what makes them so relevant and so powerful is that they pull the comedy out of everything. They're so real and so empathetic, and they're so funny. And this is really, really brought through in Michelle Yeoh's performance, because she manages to be kind of heartbreaking, kind of boring, kind of empathetic, and super funny all at once. And of course, a brilliant, action star. The way she carries that character is so subtle but captivating, and you never once get bored watching her, and she never loses that real enthralling tension, whether she's doing kung fu or whether she's bonding with her daughter. It's just this fascinating performance, but because it's so well written as well. And that also comes through in the character of Waymond Wang, played by Ke Huy Quan. And if you don't know Ke Huy Quan, just think back to Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, think back to the Goonies, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about right away. He's actually a Vietnamese actor who really stole our hearts in those movies and then kind of disappeared out of acting for a good couple of decades. And now he's back in this role, and he is awesome. He brings that same innocence, that same fun, that same beauty to the role. At first you think he's kind of playing this interesting but specific character. The sympathetic dad, husband figure, but there's complexity to that. And then he also plays this other character from another universe that's very straight and very authoritative. What really sets his performance apart is the moment when he's pleading with everybody to just be kind. And he's bawling. The delivery of that moment, that is the moment for me where he deserves the Oscar. For the rest of it, you're kind of going, oh yeah, it's good, but is it that good? That's the moment for me that really sold it. He has some of the best lines in the whole film. When Michelle Yeoh's character Evelyn is kind of thinking about what could have been and telling him about this in another universe, he kind of says, you know, I kind of would have liked a life where I just did laundry and taxes with you. And it's this beautiful summation of the whole theme of the movie. He really sells the role, and so does Michelle Yeoh. So does Joy, played by Stephanie Su. Loved her performance. Tragic, but joy-filled. And the final one, Jamie Lee Curtis, who actually won the Best Supporting Actress for this, is just astonishing. You won't recognize her at first, but it will dawn on you, and you will just realize how brilliant her character is and how brilliantly she has played it. So all three of these characters, first view you might think, oh yeah, they're playing a cool role, but you know, that's kind of all it is. But on second watch, you'll see the nuance, you'll see the subtlety, you'll see the way they draw us into these characters, and they never let go. It cements in my mind why these guys got the Oscar. The last thing I want to talk about is theme and cohesion. People have really responded to this movie. It isn't just about this crazy multiverse traveling. It's also not just about the immigrant experience. It's also not just about poverty and the struggle for finances and the struggle to keep things together. It's about the choices that we make as individuals that define us and define the paths that we take, and how those choices affect and impact on our relationships with our family, and vice versa, how those relationships impact on our life story, and how those things are inseparable. That is the power of this story. It's very much about connection. It's very much about redemption and forgiveness and bridging the divide between generational trauma and generational misunderstanding. Not just about that, but about how that defines us and about how it validates and brings to cohesion their whole life's journey, their life story. And that's why this movie works so well, is it's the cohesion. So you have all these fascinating different elements, and they all inform on each other. Stylistic choices, plot choices, character choices, it adds to the whole. None of it is superfluous. None of it is wasted. It's all meaningful, it's all connected, it's all integrated, and it's all integral to the meaning of the film, but also to our experience of it. And that is what makes this movie such a work of art. What the Daniels have achieved here, so incredible. It's genius, it's inspirational, it's epic, but it's also connecting with people. It's also a lot of fun. It's also unashamedly visually crazy. It's also just nuts in some places, but even the nuts stuff, even the sausage fingers, have a purpose, and that is what makes this movie so incredible. To conclude, Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's the kind of modern storytelling that we should all aspire to. No longer do epics need to be told on the grand scope of fantasy realms or the battlefield of war or natural disasters or man-made disasters. Epics can be told from the lens of domestic intimacy and still be epic and still be inspirational and still be funny. That is what I think this movie has really achieved. Congratulations to everyone involved in it. What a masterpiece. Guys, you have been watching Words. It has been so much fun. If you have enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and follow our socials. Please comment below, adding your thoughts on the movie. I would love to hear about it. You've been watching Words with Elise James. Thanks, bye.